This Friday marks 1 year of the war in Ukraine. As the anniversary approaches, the US has warned China of consequences if it sends weapons and ammunition to help Russia's invasion of Ukraine. For more on this and a look back at the year, joined by the former US National Security Advisor and former Ambassador to the UN, that's John Bolton. Always a pleasure, Mr. Bolton. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, did I hear that you've about to throw your hat in the ring to be the next President of the United States?
Well, I'm thinking about it. I looked at it very seriously in 2016, decided not to, but I was very concerned about Donald Trump's comments some weeks back that the U.S. Constitution should be terminated so that he could be declared the winner of the 2020 election. And I wasn't satisfied with the response of the people who are considering running. So I thought I ought to be serious about it because I think it's important to end this idea that the 2020 election was stolen or that Donald Trump really has any claim on the loyalty of conservatives or Republicans.
If you run, do you think you'll win?
Well, I wouldn't run unless I thought I could win. I wouldn't do this simply to make the point. It's a very arduous process, as I think people know. So it requires some due diligence before making the decision, and that's really what I'm in the process of doing now.
When will you decide?
Well, I think in the next few months, the process is a little bit slower than I anticipated it would be. There are a lot of people who are looking at getting in. And one thing I think we all want to avoid is to have so many people in the race that Trump is able to slip between them and get the nomination. I don't think he will be the nominee ultimately anyway, and I don't think he would win if, God forbid, he did become the Republican nominee.
Let's talk about China. Two things. What are they up to when it comes to supporting Russia against Ukraine and, of course, these spy balloons as well? Choose which one you want to first.
Well, in terms of support for Russia, I know Secretary Blinken warned them about supplying weapons. Honestly, for the past year, China has been giving Russia enormous support already. There's no doubt in my mind that sanctioned Russian financial institutions are laundering money through China's extraordinarily opaque financial system. And China has substantially increased its purchases of Russian oil and natural gas to make up for revenues lost in other sales. I don't doubt that in more clandestine ways, China's also been helping Russia, perhaps assisting North Korea in its sales of artillery and ammunition, and in many other ways. The idea that somehow China and Russia have split over the invasion of Ukraine has always been wrong. It's really quite the opposite. They're forming a closer and closer entente, and it's a problem for the West as a whole going forward. The Chinese balloon, which I think was very badly mishandled by the Biden administration, is significant in its own right. People theorize that one reason they're interested in balloon surveillance over the United States is that in the event of war, people have spoken for a long time about China's anti-satellite program being designed to take out American eyes in the sky. So they would expect we would then do the same to theirs, and balloon surveillance is a substitute, a poor substitute, I think, but something to look at. So this balloon should be a wake-up call for people in the United States, in Europe, and elsewhere who don't think China is a threat in the 21st century. In my view, China is the existential threat in the 21st century.
But I thought China had all these sort of technology in space where they could read number plates from the moon or whatever. Why do they need to have these balloons around?
Right. Well, their cameras may not be as good as ours, but even if they are, as I say, in a circumstance, in conflict or in pre-conflict crisis, when the sides were destroying their satellite observation capabilities, having some alternative, high-flying aircraft like the U-2 that we have, or these balloons, could be at least something of a substitute. And Chinese research may be moving faster ahead on that than ours has been. But to be sure, this is a serious matter, but it's indicative of the extraordinarily widespread nature of Chinese surveillance efforts against the United States and the West as a whole.
Was President Biden right to say, shoot him down?
Frankly, he should have shot it down before it crossed over into Alaska. according to press reports, we had actually been tracking that balloon since it left the island of Hainan south of the Chinese mainland about a week before it showed up over the Aleutian Islands. I think the presumption should be an unidentified aircraft that we have no idea what the payload is or what its capabilities are, gets shot down before it endangers Americans.
And you think that there was similar incidents during the Trump administration?
Well, I was certainly not notified of it. I have had a highly classified briefing by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, for which I thank the administration, so I'm somewhat constrained in what I can say. But I think it's clear that there have been a lot of unidentified phenomena in past years that it's been observed, but our analysts have not been able to understand what it is. I think this balloon and the research that's been done in the past couple of years indicates that there's probably a lot more of this than we knew in the past. So we learned from that. We increased the capacity of our radar and other detection systems and just try and make our perimeter more secure than it has been.
And just to go back to your comments about Russia and China, you feel that China is already supplying lethal weaponry to Russia in the war against Ukraine?
Well, it wouldn't be surprising, or, non-governmental organizations in China volunteering their assistance to the Russians. I wouldn't take anything either one of them says at face value. And the fact that the United States government is only commenting on it now doesn't mean that it's just started right now. China has a vested interest in this entente with Russia. The only disagreement between the two countries over the war in Ukraine, I think, is probably Chinese disappointment that the Russians aren't doing better.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for joining us. As always, Mr. Bolton, look forward to seeing you in the studio again soon. Thank you.